him in the most intimate way possible. What would you do if the woman who's been helping raise your son crossed a line you never expected? Well, this billionaire found out, and his reaction. It's going to shock you. Stick around to see what happens next.
And if you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. It was an ordinary afternoon at the Whitaker Mansion, a massive estate perched on a hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Jonathan Whitaker, a billionaire business mogul, had just returned home after a grueling week of meetings, deals, and endless conference calls. The air was thick with tension from the constant whirlwind of his professional life. He had everything one could ever ask for: wealth, success, a sprawling home, but what he didn't have was time. Time to spend with his wife, Rachel. Time with his young son, Samuel. He was always on the move, constantly building his empire, while the people he cared about seemed to fade into the background. Samuel, his 8-month-old son, had been growing quickly, and Jonathan found himself missing out on the moments that really mattered. He realized that the few times he did get to spend with Samuel were often fleeting, brief, rushed moments between flights, business calls, or social events. Rachel, his wife, had also been absorbed in her career, and while they still loved each other, the bond they once shared seemed to have frayed. At the mansion, the staff had become a seamless part of their daily routine, but no one seemed to be more intertwined with the family's day-to-day life than Clara, the maid. Clara had been with the Whitakers for nearly 2 years, and in that time, she had built a close relationship with the family. She was a Black woman in her late 20s, strong, caring, and nurturing, with natural curly hair that she often wore in a bun while working. Despite being hired as a maid, she had become an essential part of their household, particularly when it came to caring for Samuel. Clara had a natural ability to comfort and soothe Samuel in ways that Jonathan and Rachel hadn't been able to. Samuel, a normally fussy baby, would quiet whenever Clara was near. She had formed an attachment to the child, almost as if she were his second mother. Clara's bond with Samuel went beyond just fulfilling her job. She genuinely loved and cared for him. One day, Jonathan came home earlier than expected. He had planned to surprise his wife and spend some time with his family, but when he entered the house, it was unusually quiet. No sounds of Rachel preparing dinner or the hum of the television. No background noise at all, just the soft whispers of the wind through the open windows. It was almost as if the house had become a sanctuary of silence, a rare moment of peace. Curious, Jonathan walked down the hallway, hearing soft sounds from the nursery. The door was slightly ajar, and without thinking, he pushed it open. What he saw inside shocked him to his core. There, in the corner of the room, Clara was sitting in a rocking chair, holding Samuel in her arms. She was nursing him, a motherly, tender gesture that Jonathan had never expected to witness, especially not from Clara. The moment froze. Jonathan stood there speechless for what felt like an eternity. He didn't know how to react. Should he something? He had walked in on a moment so intimate, so private, that it made him uncomfortable in a way he hadn't anticipated. Clara, hearing the door creak, looked up at Jonathan with wide eyes. Her face flushed, realizing what had just happened. She immediately stood up, shifting Samuel back to his crib, her hands shaking. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitaker. I didn't mean for you to see this." Jonathan was still frozen, trying to process what had just happened. "Clara, what is going on?" His voice was a mix of confusion and surprise. He didn't know whether to be angry or understanding. Clara quickly placed Samuel in the crib and turned to Jonathan. I I thought it would help him calm down. He's been having trouble settling after his feeds, and I just thought that maybe—" She trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. Jonathan's mind was spinning. "You've been nursing him?" he asked, his tone questioning. It wasn't just the action, it was the intimacy of the moment. It wasn't something a maid should be doing, or at least, that's what he had thought. He tried to regain composure, but a knot formed in his stomach. Clara's face turned pale, and she stepped back slightly, not sure how to respond. "I understand if this makes you uncomfortable. I wanted to help. I care for him like he's my own," she said, her voice shaking with nerves. Jonathan stood there, unsure of how to proceed. The scene felt surreal, yet it was undeniably real. Here was the woman who cared for his son, taking it upon herself to comfort him in a way he hadn't been able to. But it left him with a strange, unsettled feeling. How was he supposed to react? What was the right thing to say? He couldn't deny that Clara had done something kind, but the boundaries were blurry, and he wasn't sure where to draw the line. I I don't know how to feel about this, Jonathan admitted, his voice softer now. But we need to talk about it. We need to set some boundaries. He turned toward the door, leaving Clara standing in the nursery, her emotions raw. After the incident in the nursery, Jonathan couldn't stop thinking about Clara's actions. He hadn't expected to be so unsettled by it, but the more he thought about it, the more questions arose. Why had Clara gone this far? And why had she felt comfortable enough to do something so intimate? Days passed, but the tension between them lingered. Jonathan tried to act normal, but every time he saw Clara with Samuel, his mind would flash back to that moment in nursery. He couldn't shake the image of Clara nursing his son. It wasn't just the fact that it was Clara, it was the vulnerability, the connection, the way she had cared for Samuel as if he were her own. Meanwhile, Clara continued her work, but she felt the distance between them. She had never intended to cross any boundaries, but Samuel had become like a child to her. She had lost her own baby years ago, and caring for Samuel had been therapeutic for her. He had filled the void left in her heart, and in a way, nursing him felt like a second chance at motherhood. Every time she looked at Jonathan, she could see the conflict in his eyes. He didn't understand, and perhaps he never would. But Clara couldn't stop her feelings. Samuel needed her, and she needed him. One evening, Jonathan finally decided that he needed to talk to Clara about the situation. It had been eating away at him for days, and he couldn't let it fester any longer. He needed clarity, and he needed to understand where they stood. He called Clara into his study after dinner. Clara entered the room, visibly nervous. She knew this conversation was coming. "Clara, I need to know what's going on here," Jonathan said, sitting down in his chair, his tone firm but not harsh. "I've been thinking about what happened in the nursery, and I need to understand your perspective. Why did you feel the need to do that?" Clara, now seated across from him, swallowed hard. She had expected this conversation but wasn't prepared for how difficult it would be. I, I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitaker. I didn't mean to overstep. I just felt that Samuel needed more than what we were giving him. He needed comfort, something that a mother's touch could provide. I've been caring for him for so long, and he feels like my own. Jonathan listened carefully. For the first time, he saw the depth of Clara's connection to Samuel, and it shifted his perspective. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" he asked, his voice softer now. Clara nodded. "I lost my own child years ago," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Caring for Samuel, it's been healing for me. He's not just a job. He's become part of me." Jonathan was stunned. He had no idea. The pain in Clara's voice was undeniable, and it gave him a new understanding of her actions. He had never considered that her bond with Samuel went beyond professional duty. It was personal, emotional, and deeply rooted in her own loss. "I understand now," Jonathan said, his voice filled with empathy. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, but I think we need to find a way to balance things. You have a deep love for Samuel, and I respect that. But we also need to establish clear boundaries moving forward." Clara nodded, grateful for his understanding. "I just want to do what's best for him, Mr. Whitaker. That's all." From that moment on, Jonathan and Clara began to communicate more openly. Jonathan became more involved in Samuel's daily life, spending time with his son and realizing how much he had missed. The bond between Clara and Samuel remained strong, but now there were clear boundaries in place. Clara continued to care for Samuel, but Jonathan became more present as a father, sharing those moments that were once just part of his wife's duties. Jonathan's understanding of Clara grew deeper, and while the relationship between them had shifted, it wasn't based on guilt or discomfort. It was rooted in the recognition of Clara's deep love for Samuel. Both Jonathan and Clara found a new way to navigate their roles in Samuel's life, ensuring that boundaries were respected, but also that the love and care that Samuel needed continued. As the days went by, Jonathan realized that sometimes the people closest to you, those you trust, can surprise you in the most unexpected ways. But he also learned that understanding, empathy, and communication were the keys to maintaining respect, even in the most challenging circumstances. And for Clara, it was a new chapter where she could continue caring for Samuel without crossing any lines, finding peace in knowing she had helped heal a part of herself in the process. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. You just witnessed a moment no one saw coming, but the truth is always more complicated than it seems. What do you think? Drop a comment below and share this with your friends. They won't believe it either. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that will blow your mind.